Alright, so today we're going to look at an Excel spreadsheet that's got data in it. Excel has become a very common tool that especially the smaller businesses will use for their financial statements, for their data collection. Even if you use a program like a QuickBooks or something like that, a lot of times you actually end up downloading reports into Excel so that you can manipulate the data, pull tables, do filters, things like that. But one of the things that happens sometimes with Excel is we end up with a bunch of data points, but we don't really know what they're telling us. It can be, especially if you're not inclined to the numbers and things like that, it can be just very overwhelming sometimes. And so we're going to look at one of the tools Excel has to help you kind of cut through some of that overwhelmingness of the data so that you can get to what's this actually telling me, right? And so this first sheet we have here is just a simple budget and actual profit and loss. So the first column there is your, the C column is your categories. The D column is your budget. So that is what we thought before the, let's say year in this case, before the year, what we thought we were going to have for revenues and costs and what we thought our profit was going to be. And then column F is your actual. So that's what we actually produced. And then column H is the difference, and it's in percentage form. So if a revenue number went up, you have a positive percentage. If it goes down, you have a negative percentage. And the same way with the expenses. So the expenses are, if the expense costs more than you had budgeted, then it's a positive number. If you spent less than you had budgeted, then it's a negative number. So when you look at this sheet, you kind of look at that top line first. I mean, that's always kind of the, the first thing that a lot of folks look at is, what did my revenue do? And so the revenue in this case is up. We produced more revenue than we had budgeted. Fantastic, right? That is great. But here's the situation that a lot of business owners and managers find themselves in. You look at the total revenue and it's up and you say, wow, that's great. We had a really good year. And then you scroll down a little bit here to this net profit number and you see that you produced less net profit than you had budgeted for. So you sold more products and services, but you actually made less money. And that can be a very frustrating experience. And when you look at this statement here, it's really hard to pick out why you didn't make as much money, right? So if you key down here to gross profit, you see, hey, we had more gross profit than we had budgeted for. Good deal. Our operating expenses were up though, right? And so you might look at that and you might say, well, if I had more gross profit, then it must be that I spent more money on my operating expenses. And then you start looking at this and you've got, 0%, you've got a bunch of really random numbers, some are even negative, and you're like, what does this even mean? So one of the tools that we're going to use to kind of cut through that is conditional formatting. So conditional formatting allows you to provide a rule and then highlight a cell into a certain color based on whether or not it meets that rule. So for instance, it looks like the biggest percentage change we have here is this 200%. We have a 0%. We've got a negative 100, a negative 70, so it's a really wide range. But let's say we want to key in on what are the areas that we had the biggest deviation in a upward motion. So what that means is, what are the areas that we spent way more than we had budgeted? That's really what we're talking about here. What are the areas we spent way more than we had budgeted? So what we're going to do, so I'm just going to click here. This is H18. This is the first number I want to look at. I'm going to click and highlight down. Okay. And then I'm going to come up here to conditional formatting. Click my drop down. So you have lots of options here. So this first one is highlight cell rules. So you can do greater than, less than. You can pick out cells that are between certain numbers, if they equal something specific, if it has text that contains a certain word or a certain combination of letters. You can do some stuff with dates. You can do duplicate values, and duplicate values is something that probably not real beneficial on this type of statement, but the next example we look at, you may find that it's a little more beneficial. Top bottom rule, so you can pick out the top 10, the bottom 10, above average, below average. You can do data bars, and so data bars fill in that information kind of graphically, and that's if that helps you kind of see what's happening in each cell. You can do color scales, so basically if it meets a certain threshold, it's one color. If it meets another threshold, it's a different color. And think about it kind of like a stoplight, you know, red, yellow, green, so you could kind of divide your numbers up. So if it's real low, it's red. If it's middle, it's yellow. If it's high, it's green, things like that. You can also do icon sets. Icon sets function very similarly to the color scales, except it adds these icons that you see here instead of the colors. You can also do your own rule. So if you click new rule here, what you'll end up with is several options. You can do it based on a formula, but if you have something that doesn't fit one of these preset options, then you can create your own rule. Once you apply conditional formatting, you can also unapply it. So if you came up here and you put clear rules, you could clear them just from the cells you have highlighted. You can clear it from the entire sheet. And a lot of times what I would use that for is if I put some conditional formatting in there to pick out one thing and I decide, you know what, that's not really what I need, I want to pick out something different, then I would clear the rules and then I would do a new rule. So let's pick out, let's say we're going to pick out everything greater than, let's do everything greater than 20%. So if anything was more than 20%, we spent more than we had budgeted by 20% or more, it's going to highlight it here. I hit OK, and so this picks this out really quickly for me. So if I was looking at where did I really deviate from, boom, right here. Office payroll up, marketing advertising way up, travel and auto was up, office expenses were up. Those are the key areas. Those are the ones I might want to look at first when I'm deciding what happened here, right? So what we're doing is we're taking data and we're making information. Information is just simply data that we have an understanding of and that we can use to make decisions. And the conditional formatting helps us cut through that overwhelming feeling we get when we're looking through all of these little data points. So look real quick at another example. So this is a customer list. You have your customer names here. You've got your dollar amounts, fairly long list. So let's say that you want to pick out, you've got a new promotion going. You want to pick out the top 5 customers based on how much money they spent. You want to follow up individually with those customers. And you probably even have a list way longer than this. So we're going to click here on our first number. We'll highlight down. We'll go to our conditional formatting. We can go to our top bottom rules. And let's do top 10. Right? And now when this pops up, I can actually change that 10. And I'll say I only want the top 5. Bring this down to 5. Hit OK. So now it highlights my top 5 customers. So now I know the people I need to follow up with are Bill, Cindy, Ronald, Lynn, and Hannah. So they're still part of this giant list though, right? So again, super easy to fix. Highlight your cell here. We're going to go up here to sort and filter. So you can actually, we're going to do a custom sort. So we can actually sort by, we're going to sort by amount. Amount's the column we want to sort from. Instead of cell values, we're going to sort by cell color. We're going to choose our color here. We want that color on top. Okay. Oh, there they are right there at the top. Now obviously you can also sort by amount. Maybe even is a little bit easier. This is a real simple example. There are lots of other reasons why you might want to use conditional formatting instead of just a general sorting. One of the things that I've done fairly often is you might do conditional formatting like for duplicate values, and then you might sort based on the color, and that pulls up all your duplicate values. And then you can decide, okay, is this a duplicate that is supposed to be here or a duplicate that isn't supposed to be here? In addition to sorting by color, you can also filter by color. So I'm going to go filter. It adds my little drop down up here on amount. I can filter by color. And now I've only got my items in here that were highlighted by the conditional formatting. So although you can, yes, you can sort without using conditional formatting, when you do that and you add that formatting, now you can filter out the things that don't meet your conditional formatting. So there's lots of ways that this can help you parse through the data, get you to good information, and hopefully this helps as you work in Excel and you work with your financial statements, your lists, your other spreadsheets. I think this is a tool that as you use it, you'll find more and more uses for it, and it's been a pretty good tool for lots of folks.